Hey guys, Jesse Foster, aka Entranced here, and I'm coming at you guys here with a short video on how to calculate implied odds and some of the different factors we want to consider with implied odds. Um, Excuse me, I'm a little bit sick today, so my voice is a little bit nasally. Um, but here we go. I think implied odds is something that many people struggle with, or perhaps they don't even struggle with it because I think most players don't realize how fundamentally bad they are at calculating implied odds. A lot of it is, you know, by feel, or a lot of people do it by feel, or they do it by math, but usually their math is not quite correct. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of demystify it here. We're gonna go over one example, and then I'll elaborate a little bit more on it. And if you guys have questions on it, you can hit me up. So there's a couple of things that are needed, pieces of information needed for the calculation of implied odds. First thing you need to know are what are your pot odds, the amount uh, the amount the pot is laying you. I'm sure you guys know what pot odds are. If not, then probably should skip this video. Um, Odds to hit on the next card. Now this is pretty important. You don't want to consider your overall equity. You want to consider what your equity is to hit on the next card. That's pretty important. And another thing you need to know are effective stacks. Now these are the absolute pieces of information that you are going to be calculating with. So the calculation, it's pretty simple. I know it looks kind of complicated, but what we're calculating the way it goes is odds to hit on the next card, minus pot odds. You take the sum of those two numbers and then you multiply it by the bet or raise amount. So if your opponent's raised, the amount that you have to call. If they bet, it's the amount you have to call. And that equals the amount we must make up on the next street or on later streets. So if you're on the flop, you will have two streets to get value out of your hand. Let's say if you have a flush draw, if you make your flush on the turn, you can extract value on the turn and river. If you're on the turn and you're going to only have the river to extract on, that's another thing to consider. Okay, so the way we want to think about it is that usually with implied odds, you're making a minus EV call on the first street in a vacuum. Usually it's going to be a negative EV call, but the idea is that you have these, implied equity, or you'll be able to get more money on the river. So this is a way of kind of quantifying that. Okay, so let's go ahead and move past that and go for an example here. So this hand, I'm playing some heads up no limit. I call a 3-bet with 9-10 suited, and this hand history is sort of confusing, but I'm guy on a Buffalo, I have 6690. I'm playing free lesson, and I'm on the button. For some reason, playing on the site that I'm on right here, it's just a little bit messed up, but okay. So here we go. Here's our first implied odds decision. Now, for the moment, I'm going to not consider the option of raising because we're not discussing strategy right now. We're just discussing the math of this particular situation. So, we are discussing strategy, but not that. We're gonna just, yeah. So, what are our odds to hit on the next card? Okay, so we have an 8 and a king will be what we will consider to be our outs. That's 8 outs. There are 47 cards left in the deck. That means we are roughly 5-1 to hit. So I'm doing this off the top of my head, but it's important that, so some of the numbers will not be totally exact, but it's important that when you do practice these calculations, that you do them in your head rather than use some sort of cheat sheet, because in real time, you're not going to have a cheat sheet, and you're going to have to calculate it by yourself. Okay, so Our odds to win our odds to hit on the next card are 5 to 1, so this number is 5. The next card, or the next thing we need to look at is our pot odds. And our pot odds in this situation, okay, we're calling $5 into 14. So that's roughly 3 to 1. And again, it's not totally exact, but it's pretty close. So, and then we're going to take that number and multiply that by the bet or raise size. In this case, it's $5. So, as we can see here, we need to make up $10 on the turn and river in order to make calling the flop plus EV. So in this case, it seems like a definite and obvious call. The other factor we need to consider are effective stack sizes. So if our opponent only had, let's say, $7 left in his stack, then calling would be pretty bad because we can't extract the $10 that we need because it's mathematically impossible. The general rule that you want to have, or at least what I've been taught, is usually about 2 times. You want about 2 times the amount you need to make up in the river, or to make up on later streets in their effective stacks. So in this case, I need to make up $10, so I want my opponent to have at least $20 in his effective stack in order for me to call the flop. There are a couple of other things to consider. You want to consider your position. Will you be able to bet if you miss and maybe get them to fold a worse hand or a better hand? We want to consider how obvious are your outs. If you're calling with a flush draw on a 3 flush board, it's going to be pretty obvious when you hit, so you have to be pretty aware of that. You want to be also aware of what's the strength of your opponent's range. If your opponent has a very strong range, it usually means you're more likely to get paid off when you do hit. How strong is our draw? In this case, it's a decently strong draw, but not by nowhere near the top of the. There could be many better draws that our opponent could have here. He could have something like King 10 of clubs, Ace 10 of clubs. There's going to be a fair amount of outs that we hit that are going to be that we're going to be crushed on, but we still do need to call. Let's see here. The street, that's something we went on or we talked about earlier. If you're on the flop, you're going to have 2 streets to extract if you hit on the turn, whereas if you're on the turn, you're only going to be able to extract on the river. And another thing you want to consider is how to play when you do hit, based on what your opponent's perceived range is. So if you have a draw, let's say you're out of position and you have a straight and flush draw, and you think your opponent has a set. If you get to the river, let's say you call the turn and you hit the river, either with a flush or a straight, you might want to just lead into them rather than trying to check and check raise all in, because they might check back one of those hands, or they might bet and fold with it. So yeah, so that's this basic video on how to do implied odds. It's not totally polished, but I hope you guys understand it. And if you don't, you can hit me up. There's a contact me forum on my blog, and we can talk about it a little bit more, and I can maybe do a follow-up video if any of the ideas are unclear. Okay, thanks.